hit
under the
the
key,
edge
switch
and
with
was
key,
pulled
or
under
key
the
0.
machine.
And then I can take that old
Her
number and just add 1 to it and then
sister
stick
was
it back
able
in.
to
This is
stop the
ultimately
machine
not how we tend to do
while
it.
he
Okay?
pulled
We tend
her
to
out.
blend this all into
I would
one big
never
long statement.
thought
Vi
it
sub
could
W equals
anything that would cause damage to my child.
plus 1. Okay, so that says
So if
the
you
old
have
value
a tread or
from this
tread
key
plus
or
at
0,
home,
and then
you
add
can
1 to it.
contact
So that really
Peloton
combines
for a full
all of these
refund.
lines into a
If
single
you
line.
don't want to
Okay?
return the
So I'm
product,
gonna
the
delete them now.
company is working on software updates to address safety concerns
Now we combine
and
this all into
also
one, but
offering to
effectively easy.
relocate the treadmill anywhere in your home for
Retrieve.
free. Guys,
Create.
Important warnings right there.
Update.
Yeah, we're going to turn now to space tourism.
All in one line.
Amazon
Also,
founder
I'll still
Jeff
print out, in
Bezos
this
has
case, I'll just
announced
say
that his
DI
aerospace company
sub W.
Blue Origin
And then we'll see the count.
will launch its
Okay?
new Shepard
So now I'll run
rocket on
this.
July 20th, and one seat is up for auction.
We
Gio
have new,
Benitez is in
and now we see the
Pittsburgh
second time
with
it's
the
2.
story. Good
And
morning,
so we
Gio.
see car the first time, we see that the second time, we see car, third time, we see
Hey,
car the
George,
second
good
time.
morning.
And
That
away we go.
launch will make
Okay?
history
And so
as the
that's pretty
first
straightforward. So
space
it really kind
tourism
of
flight to launch from the U.S.,
typo there.
and it
So
sets
let's
into
just
motion
get rid
an
of that.
entirely new industry.
run it through the phone stuff,
This
and we get the
morning,
right
the
data
beginning
there.
of space
And
tourism
let's run
is
this intro
just months
dot
away. Blue Origin, created
And
by
there we go.
Amazon
Okay.
founder
So
Jeff
it's
Bezos,
carrying out the words
announcing
and
it
giving
will
us a
launch its first
So
crew
that
into
was a lot of work to
space
get to this line
on
16 that has
July
the dictionary.
20th,
Now we
with
want to find
one
the-
seat going to the highest bidder.
We're auctioning off the first
The
seat
most common word.
to benefit our foundation, Club
And
for
so
the
we're going to loop through this
Future.
dictionary. Part of it is like, once we print this dictionary out and verify it's right,
So
don't worry
that
too much about the
future
code.
generations
Right?
can do something extraordinary
So now we're going to work on this.
Now, we
And now we
don't
want to
know
find the most common
who
word.
the
Now,
other
this is like a
crew
maximum.
members
So
will
if you
be,
recall,
but that
we
one
have a
civilian
whole set of key
makes
value
it the
pairs. Communicate
first
goes to
time
two.
any
Skills
private
is 3.
citizen
We have key
launches
value
into
pairs. We're going to
space
loop through and look for
from
the maximum.
American
Now, in
soil.
the dictionary,
The flight
you
will
loop through key
last
value pairs with the
just
following
minutes,
syntax.
enough to get a view
Or,
of Earth from
I
almost
would call
no
this these variables K and
gravity.
V for key and
Some of
value.
the NASA
But
astronauts
in
aboard the
dictionary
International
name
Space
items.
Station right
And
now
items is
tell
a
me
method inside of all
it's a
dictionaries. It
good
says give me
idea.
key
This
value
will
pairs and
hopefully
we need
open
2
the
iteration
door
pairs.
for
So this is
many
like an
more
assignment statement
people,
for K and V. K and V take on the
civilians,
successive values for
per
the keys,
se,
the
to be
V
able
and the
to
value.
come up and
Okay? So
experience
if I just
what
now
we get to
print
experience
K, V,
quite a bit.
And the business
this
of
statement
space
out,
tourism may
and then run
soon
code.
get crowded.
Whoops,
SpaceX is
oh, I
launching
fell
a
back into my
fully
Python 2 days.
civilian crew into space to
Google
orbit
Career
the Earth in
Certificates provide
September.
online training
Axiom
for
Space
in-demand
launching
jobs.
3 civilians to the
They're
ISS
developed by
in
Google,
January,
taught by Google,
and Richard
and
Branson's
made for
Virgin
you.
Galactic is hoping to start tourist flights in zero gravity
Put your
next
skills to
year.
work with a Google Career Certificate.
And I got to tell you, it is not cheap. A seat on Virgin Galactic, that's going to cost about $250,000. Over on SpaceX and Axiom, the seat's going to cost about tens of millions of dollars. And the money raised from that Blue Origin auction, that's actually going to go to a foundation for students.
Meantime, Gio, SpaceX just figured out how to land its rocket for the first time.
Battlefield should be destroyed. This world is ours.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking about Starship. And I got to tell you, there were 4 massive failures before this, but now they finally landed it. They really nailed it. It was quite a sight. And they hope to use Starship to take people to the moon, to Mars, and beyond.
Now that they've nailed that landing. Okay, Gio, thanks very much.
I know what to get you two for Christmas. Can't afford it, but I'm thinking
So
about
they're
it.
found, and it just prints it. And it's kind of the same thing, except it's pretty where we're putting each one on a line. Okay? So the K, the V is the value. So we're looking for the largest values. So the thing is, we know that the values are always
With
numbers
so
that are
much
greater than
at
1.
stake,
So I'm gonna
so
do
much
kind
on
of
the line,
a
more
quickie
Americans
maximum
turn
group.
here
Largest
than any other
is negative 1.
newscast.
Now, in previous times, we've seen that this is a bad assumption.
World
But because you know these are counters,
News
they're always
with
positive. Turns out this is not
David
a
Barr.
not a bad idea.
Another week
And so
together.
I can say,
America's
if the value
#1
is greater than the largest we've
most
seen so far,
newscast across all of television.
Admit it. These
Largest.
days, what you need to
the value?
know.
Seems to change just about every
okay?
day.
And now this is all done, we can
What
print
is it
the
that
largest.
you really want to know, need to know,
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make
Okay?
the most of
This is
it?
just a max loop.
Feel
Using the value. That's the number. The value is the second thing.
Feel happier.
well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America
can't play Python.
in the afternoon?
GMA 3, what you need to know.
Oh, it's a
Lunchtime
typo.
at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC.
Okay, so we're all done with 7.
It's
So these were the things that we were
all
looking for, and it was looking for the maximum, and it just
Robin
beautifully found
Roberts,
7 was the
George
largest. But we also want to know what the word is.
Michael
And so what we can say here
Wake
is we can
up
say the
with
word
America's
is
number
none,
1
meaning
most
it's
watched
just
morning
like we don't know what the
show,
word is. And then whenever we catch this new largest number, we say the
world
word
may feel
equals
out of
W.
your
So I
control,
like to think of
but
this
your
as
happiness doesn't
capture,
have to be.
remember,
Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the
the
10%
word
Happier
that was largest.
podcast, free on
That's what
Apple
I'm doing.
Podcasts.
Are you remem-
ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence in
So
television.
we're gonna, this trick here
ABC
is
News,
not only knowing what the largest number was, but the
number
word that was associated with the
one
largest number. So now I can pronounce
Friday
again the
nights,
word
9, 8
and the
Central,
largest. That's
true
the
crime, cinematic, real-life
Okay,
drama,
so now we know that.
stunning, the unthinkable,
Say here.
follow the clues, the hunt, true crime, 2020, Friday
It's
nights,
R.
9, 8 Central
7.
on ABC.
Oh, it's not W.
The reality
really
is our
bad
country
That's
can
value there.
collapse from
There you go.
within.
It's K, which is the key.
You see the white power
So that was
movement
quite
on
the
the
book.
march.
See what happened there? I had this as W, and it just happened to be, it was the last word on the file.
Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to
Or
incite
the last word on the
war.
file, because I used the wrong variable.
Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate,
on here.
the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Done here.
Now, when it matters most, the straightforward
There we go. Now,
facts.
the cool thing about this is this code runs just as easily with one-line code or the intro of book intro.txt.
Good morning,
And
America.
still the most common word in the introduction.txt. I seem to like that word. And it's 226 times.
Tonight,
Okay, and so that is the basic pattern of reading some. This is just a word. Now, sometimes there will be some, checking to see if the line is the one you're interested in, maybe carrying part of the line, but at the end of the day, this idiom of starting a dictionary. It's a common problem to know where to start a dictionary. You want to accumulate the numbers for the whole file. You don't want to put it in between line 6 and 7. Okay, so I hope that particular thing helps a little bit. Helps you understand dictionaries. Hello and welcome to Chapter 10. Now we're going to talk about our third kind of collection called tuples. But tuples are really a lot like lists. There's not too much to them. They're really kind of a reductionist version of lists. They're so they function very much like lists in that they have things, and the difference is there are no square braces. There is a parenthesis, round brace, or whatever, and they have positions 0, 1, and 2, just like a list. And you can look things up. X of 2. So X of 2 is actually the third element here, and so that prints out Joseph. You can assign, make a tuple here. This is the content syntax for a tuple, and print that out. And the print statement shows you that this is a tuple, not a list, by showing you round parentheses. And a whole bunch of functions that work with lists work the same way with tuples. You can put the tuple at the end of an in statement in 4, as you might expect, and then it iterates through the tuples. Tuples maintain order, so it prints out 1, 9, and 2. So literally, this bit of code here could be identical whether it was a list or a tuple. It really would do the exact same thing. The difference between tuples are that they are immutable. Once you create a tuple, you can only sort of assign a tuple, but you can't modify. You can modify a list. So if we take a look at a list here, we make a list that's 987, and we say x of 2 equals 6. Well, that just means this 7 becomes a 6, and that's just natural. Meaning we can reassign slots. We can delete things, we can insert things, we can mutate them, we can change them. So they're changeable, right? They're changeable. But if we try to do that same thing with a string, so we say y equals ABC, and we know that this is position 0, 1, and 2, but if we try to say let's change the C to a D by saying y sub 2 equals D, that is not allowed. And it says it doesn't support item assignment, and this little bracket, x sub 2, is what they call item assignment inside of Python. And so if we do the same thing then with a 3-element tuple, put that in C, and we try to change the slot to be a 0, it's going to blow up because it's the exact same thing. And that has to do with the fact that once this assignment is made, this is not modifiable. Now, it turns out that the reason it's not modifiable is for efficiency. They take up less storage, they are quicker to access, and they're really designed internally behind the scenes in ways we don't really need to understand. They're just more efficient than lists. If all you want to do is store a list and look at it and throw it away, you probably should use a tuple instead. So there's a lot of things that you can do with lists that you also can't do with tuples, but they're really just a corollary of this notion of non-mutability. And so, like, you can sort a list, but you can't sort tuples. You can add a 5 to the end of 3, 2, 1. You can't do that in a tuple, but you can in a list. And flip the order. ... So anything that you can do to a list that modifies the list, not allowed for tuples. And so you can take a look at the kinds of things that are inside the methods that are part of each list: append, count, extend, index, insert, pop. Many of these are modifying, and then count and index are the only ones that work for tuples. So tuples are limited lists. Now, at some point, there's going to be a but here to say why we like them. And the reason that we like them is that they're just more efficient. They don't have to build Python in its own internal organization of these objects. It knows that they'll never be modified, because when you make a tuple, you as the programmer saying, I'm never going to modify this, and Python won't let you do it. So it's higher performance, better memory use, and to a beginning programmer that doesn't really matter, but that's the reason. And so we tend to use tuples in situations where we're going to make a temporary variable and then temporarily use it just a little bit and throw it away without really messing with it. We tend to use lists to build things up, etc., etc., etc. So the other thing that's interesting about tuples, and we've actually sort of seen this, is that you can put a tuple that includes variables on the left side of the assignment. And this takes a little getting used to, but it's really cool, and no other language that I know of does this. So if we say x comma y, that's a 2 tuple. Both have to be variables. You can't put constants on this side. It's like saying x equals 4, y equals Fred. Right? So what happens is you can put a tuple on the far side of an assignment statement. The 4 goes to x, and the Fred goes to y. You can say what's in y? Well, y is in 2 Fred. So this is like 2 assignment statements. Now, the way I've got this syntax, I would probably do 2 separate statements, just not to show off that I know how to do tuples. And so here's another one, and they just move correspondingly. If you don't have 2 here and you do have 2 here, well, if you have 3 here, or 2 here and 3 here, and you don't match the number there, you get in some trouble. Now, if you just say x equals tuple, then that is the tuple in the list. But this is just a simple straight 99 value going to the a. So you can put tuples as the left-hand side, and you can even do things like return a tuple from functions. That's a real nice Python feature that I like a lot. Tuples are also related to dictionaries, as we've seen in the previous chapter. So here we make a little dictionary. We make an empty dictionary by constructing an empty dictionary, stick it in D, so D is sort of like this place that can hold key value pairs, and we put C7, and there's 2 in there, and gen 1, and there's a 4 in there. We have this social mapping between C7 and 2 and gen 4, all stuff you know. And now we say, hey, we're going to loop through the key value pairs here, and you've seen the syntax before. K, comma, V. So this is a tuple. So you can think of this as each one of these things is going to get assigned to this tuple.
We talk about taxation without representation. We talk about second-class citizenship.
So KV, you're going to iterate
This
successively
island
through
is
the successive keys and
111
values.
miles by 38
so this is going to run twice, and K is going to be C7 2, and gen 4 in order. Just happen to stay the same. And so if you say, what is in one of these things, you can actually take the items method within that dictionary and say, hey, give me back here, give that to me back, and then print out, and this is it's a special kind of a class. Really, ultimately, it is a list of tuples. This is 2, this is the 0, this is the 2, the 1, the first and the second, and then within each thing you get, you have a 2 tuple. So in a sense, this K and V are iterating through those things. You're putting the items here and the item. The nice thing about tuples is that they're comparable. They're comparable in the same way that strings are comparable, meaning that they're compared from left to right, with the leftmost or 0 tuple being the most significant, and it doesn't compare any further than it has to if it's asking less than. So if it's looking at, say, this first tuple, it starts at the left and says, okay, it asks the question, tell me true or false. Is 0 less than 5? The answer is true. And so the answer to this overall expression is true, and it doesn't even compare those 2 numbers, or those second and third numbers. They don't compare. If, on the other hand, we're asking is this less than that, it only looks at the first one and asks if it can answer the question. The answer is, well, they're both 0, and so I can't answer the question, so I have to go to the second one, second pair, and 1 is less than 3, and so that means this is true. And it does not check this, even though 20 20 million is bigger than 4, it doesn't matter because these are the numbers that cause the true to happen. And the same is true if you do this with strings. Again, we start the first one. So Jones, Sally, well, that's the same, so we don't know the answer yet. So Sally, Sam, well, okay, S, so they're the same. A, they're the same. O, L, and M. L is less than M, so the actual letter that makes the difference here, the L and the M, and leads to us being true. And so this goes left to right, but then even when it's doing strings, it's going left to right. That's just how string comparison works. And
far too long.
If we say, is Jones, Sally greater than Adam, Sam, well, we check the first one, we check the J and A, well, J is greater than A, so we don't look at anything else, we have to look at this. Any more characters, we have to look at the second thing in the double, we have to look at that is enough to be true. So it only scans until it has a definitive answer, it doesn't scan any further.
You are not
So now what we're going to do is use this comparable capability
you are
to sort
not
these doubles
worthy
and then bring this all
of
back and
being
connect more
walked
to dictionaries.
through these processes in a way that is humane and it contemplates your dignity. We have to sit down and think, what could we do on a national level that gets us there?
Usability and transparent pricing. Find out more at click.com/welcomehome.
So now we can take advantage of the notion of comparing tuples and use sorting. And so what we're going to produce is a list of tuples, and then we're going to sort them, right? And so we can get a list of tuples from a dictionary, and then we can sort that list of tuples, and then we can end up sorting dictionary items by taking this two-step process. Convert dictionary to list, sort the list, and then we can have sorted dictionary values, okay? So we'll do this a couple of times. So if we take a look at this code right here, we have a little dictionary, A, B, C, A maps to 10, B maps to 1, C maps to 20. Like, what are we going to get here? Well, it comes out, the mapping is the right way, but the order is whatever. And now we say this function called sorted, which takes inside the sequence and then returns us a sorted version of that, a list that's sorted. And so it says sort the item. So it's basically going to take this list and compare the A's and the C's and the B's, and because it's a dictionary, all keys are unique, there's never any equality, so we can just sort this by keys and never get to the value. You could construct a list of that duplicate, you could make a list of tuples and add duplicates in the first, like we did before, but given that this comes from the dictionary, the first thing is going to always be unique and distinct. And so if we say sorted D of items, that we're passing this stuff into sorted, sorted is going to go around, move stuff around, and then give us back a sorted version, sorted in ascending order based on key without looking at the value. So that's a way to see dictionaries sorted by key is just to say sorted D's of items, and sorted is a function, and so it just fixes it. So this is the kind of loop that you're going to write to do this. No, we did this before, we took sorted and got these sorted by keys, and so you can just make this nice and simple for key value. By the way, you can eliminate the parentheses here, and I think it's prettier if you eliminate the parentheses, but parentheses. This is still a tuple without the parentheses. For key and value in sorted, so that says go through the items, but before I go through them, please sort them. So that means K is going to go through A, B, and C deterministically every single time. It's going to go, and first value is going to go through the corresponding value. So now we can print this out nicely, sorted by key, and that's a real nice, succinct little way to say that. Again, these are one of the kind of things that people really like about Python, is that you can do pretty powerful things with easy to understand. I mean, you might see this for the first time, but ultimately eventually you go, oh yeah, I see exactly what that's doing. Easy, not hard at all. So,
the decision on whether or not Puerto Rico becomes independent, becomes a state, or continues in the relationship that we are currently at, is not our own. It's at the hands of the
This is an example
federal
of using cleverly
government.
constructed data structures to do this. And the data structure that we're going to create is a list of tuples where the value is first and the key is second. So you can just with items get key value. I want value key. So let's take a look at this code. Take the time and get it right. So KV goes in C items. Well, that is unsorted. I'm going to go through whatever A, B, and C in whatever order. And we're going to make a new list. So this is a data structure that we're
see
creating
themselves as part of a community
this is a list.
rather than part
and we're going to append to that list
colony of the United
States. This is going to be a list
Although
of tuples.
we are aware of our
Except we're not going to
status,
append them
at the end of the
in
day,
key value order. We're
we
going
are
to
what we
flip them. And the
was.
first part of the tuple is going
And
to be
we are
value, and the second
very
part is going to be
proud
key. So we end up with this. This is sort of a temporary data structure that we have constructed to make our job really easy. So this ends up being 10A, 22C, 1B. And we just kind of flipped them. We took this order, and then we flipped them around. So now we have this nice little list sitting in memory and variable. And that's really simple. We can say, oh, look, we can use sorted. And we can sort by now the values because they're the first thing. The sorted doesn't know that they're how we produce this list. It just looks at that. So that's list tuples. I'm going to always sort by looking at the first item in any tuple. And I'm going to add reverse equals true, so I do a descending sort. So I see that the value that is highest ends up being first. And so that changes this, and I'm just sort it and reassign it back into temp. And I'll print this out, and so now you see it's sorted in descending order of key. So it's value, key, value, key, value, key. But it's sorted in descending order. Okay? And so that's an example sort of just like, if I just make a data structure and flip those things around, I could use sorted to sort these things.
You are making
There are many
the
other ways to do
decision that
it.
you're
Sort of like
making
more
because out of the goodness of your
clever bit
heart,
is
you
like make a new
think
list,
that you're
make it be a
making the
little bit
right
different.
decision.
So
for your
here we're going to print
country
out the top 10
and
most
for your
common words in a file. And most of this code is review, so if we take a look at it, we're going to open file. We're going to start a dictionary for our counting. We're going to, there's going to be words and lines, right? And so we're going to have a for loop. This for loop is going to go through each line. And then, of course, we're going to split them, which is busting them into pieces. And then we have a for loop within that, and this for loop is going to go through each word. And so that means that by nesting these loops, we're going through each line, and then within the line, we're going through a word. Then we go to the next line, go through the words. And eventually, this line of code, count subword equals counts.getWord 0 plus 1, our idiom for making a histogram. Right? This line right here is an idiom. If you don't know already what that is, go back to the previous dictionary lecture and understand it, because you're just going to use it over and over again. So now at this point, and I always like drawing horizontal lines in code when we write it. At this point, coming through at this point, counts is right. Counts is the histogram. It's not sorted. So now we want to sort it. So we're going to make a new list. We're going to loop through key value, and then we're going to make a tuple. I'm making this be 2 lines to make it a little easier. Value key, so I'm flipping it, right? So I'm flipping the order of these things. That's making a tuple, and I'm appending that tuple to the list. Okay? So at the end of this, we have a list of tuples in value key order, VK, right? So at this point, coming through here, I've got in my LST variable, I've got this really useful bit of code, or useful bit of data that I produced. And then I'm like, oh, now it's ready to be sorted. Poof, sort. So take list, sort it back, and sort it in descending order, and then stick that back in list. Now, we want to print it out, but we don't want to print it out. We don't. So we got a nice sorted list coming down here. We don't want to print it out in value key, because that's what it is. It's in parentheses V, K order, but it's sorted. And we know that the highest value is here down. And so we're going to say, we're going to run through, and now we're going to go through this new list, only the first 10, start at the beginning up to it, not including number 10, which is the first 10. For value key in, and so value is good. So this is the iteration variable. It's going to go through each of these things, on and down, and then we're just going to print it out flipping it. So we flip it, flip. We print it out and down.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Okay, so
why the fascination
that
with
is
criminal
one way of doing this.
trials?
And this slide right here,
Figure out what's really out there.
Some of you will look at this slide and you're like, why did you show us that at the beginning? Others of you will be like, no, keep telling me this stuff here. So
I know in my heart they did this.
Very procedural. This is a classic algorithm and data structure code.
It's the time of suspicion.
This next thing uses pandas, and they
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
Roughly, this single line does everything that bottom half of that program does. Go back here. It's pretty much this line does everything.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know,
to help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it? Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
And then this
well,
is the fun
how about a third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC.
So this
It's
says,
all
this is a
about
list
you.
of two tuples, V and K, and then this is sort of implied for all KV in C.items. So this is like a for loop that is sort of driving this. Think of this as like stamp. However many times it has to make a stamp. So that's producing a list.
Assault on the
It just manufactures this list.
the
And then that list is sort of
ABC News
manufactured in the
original,
moment.
exclusively on Hulu,
Makes that list
now
according to the stamping pattern
streaming. With
that you
so
told it to
much
stamp
at
out.
stake,
And then it
so
passes that
much on
stamped
the
out list without
line,
even sorting it
more
very well.
Americans
Into
turn
sorted,
here than any other newscast. ABC News, World News Tonight with David Moore.
Another week together.
America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, Michael Strahan. Wake up with America's #1 most watched morning show, ABC's Good Morning America.
ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence in television. ABC News.
And now in this little bit of lesson, we're going to talk about some tuples, and we're going to create a list of the most common words and find out how to sort the dictionary by the values instead of by the key. We're going to use the clown.txt file and the intro.txt file. And I'm going to start with the code from exercise 9 that I just did from chapter 9. It's exactly one of the exercises, very similar thing. And I'm going to make a copy, and I'm going to keep it in the same folder. I'm going to keep it in the EX09 folder. It's called EX10 because this code is going to do much of the same stuff. It's going to be the same file. So I've got myself exercise 9 is still here. Exercise 10 is now what I'm editing. Exercise 10. But I'm in the exercise 9 folder. So in exercise 9, we look for the most common word, but we want to find 5 most common words, which is going to require us to sort. So I'm going to get rid of that code, because it's not really how we're going to do it. There we manually loop through it and found the maximum. And so I'm going to just run this cd desktop for everybody EX09. If I do an ls, you see that I've got EX09.py intro.txt. So I'll run Python 3, EX10.py, run clown data, and we see that the dictionary is properly making it in this code right here. That doesn't change the file to dictionary.items. And this gives us basically a list. This gives us a list of key value pairs. This prints out the dictionary, but if we do it this way, and use items, it gives us the key value pairs. Okay, so that's what we got. Key value pairs. Now, we can sort this based on the values of tuples to be compared. This can be compared with this, and because D is lower than R, then this one is lower. This ran tuple comes after down tuple. So we can sort this whole thing. And I'll do this by just putting the word sorted here and say, give me a sorted version of that. Now it's going to do it based on the order of the tuples. This is going to be more higher precedence than this. So if I print it this way,
Michael, good morning. Now, she says it was
you'll see
hard
that it's sorted.
for her
And now
to hear
it's
that
after and
diagnosis,
it's in alphabetical order by
confusing
key.
even.
And so we could
And this
actually
morning,
print the first
she
5
says
up to but not including 5 by adding a list on slices, a list slice here. And so that will show you only the first 5, right?
This
Except that that's not what we're trying to do. We really want
supermodel
to sort by
Tess
this.
Holiday revealing her struggle with
So,
anorexia.
We have this mechanism that can take a list and sort it based on a couple values. If we could create a list where it was 1 comma after instead of after comma 1 and make it the exact same thing, then we could actually then sort it and it would be fine.
Most of her life.
So let me show you a couple of ways, at least one way.
Okay? But then people in my life would say,
it
was almost like I wore it as a badge of honor.
And then 4,
known for loving and celebrating her curves as a body-positive activist, Holiday has been receiving support for her honesty from many, but also being questioned by some online about how she can love her body and also have an eating disorder.
Instead of printing this out, we are
I've
going
had
to
a lot of messages from folks that are anorexic that are livid and diversity and larger bodies. So I think for people hearing
I'm going to end up with
me
a list
say
of
I'm
tuples.
anorexic was
and other than when I'm done here, I'm
really jarring.
Holiday's dietitian, Anna Sweeney, says, if you
So
think that most eating disorders are visible conditions, you're wrong. Eating disorders don't have to look a certain way.
I understand that people look at me and I don't fit what we have seen presented as,
all we did is we made it instead of Carcon 3,
the diagnosis for
but now we have a list.
anorexia. But then for me, that tells me that there's a larger problem, which I've been actually saying for years, is that we have a lack of diversity and representation in the world.
Eating disorders are extremely common and may affect
it,
nearly 1 in every 10
It's not sorted
people.
at all, but after we sorted it, it's sorted by tuple, and the lowest is 1 after. So you'll notice that 1 is the same as 1, so check the second item in the tuple. So down comes before after. Bell becomes after down.
Will have an eating
Intro,
disorder
on,
in their
alphabet order, but now we get the 2s. So all the ones sort there, and then the 2s come
The
here. But then
National
within the 2s, it's
Eating
sorted in alphabetical order.
Disorders
Like a
Association
string,
reported
if the first character matches, then it looks at the second character. And then we see, oh, here we go, the 3s, and then the one we actually wanted, the highest one, is the 7.
Including her
So one of
divorce,
the things we can do is we can
with
say,
over 2
you'll
million
notice that we want the highest
followers
one,
on
not the lowest one.
Instagram,
So we can just
hoping
tell
to
this
reach others
with this
that might be
reverse
facing a
equals true.
similar battle.
You wrote, I'm the
Just say, hey,
result
sorted,
of a
do this
culture
backwards.
that
Do it from
celebrates
highest to lowest,
thinness
lowest to
and
highest.
equates that
And
to
now our sorted
worth.
one says
But I
7,
get to write my
etc.
own
Okay?
narrative.
So we want the first 5.
So tell me, what is that story?
We can say,
I mean, the sky's the limit.
Up to, but not including
I
5.
actually
So this is
feel
now
like I can
top
take
5.
on the things
So the
that
ones,
life is
that's the top
throwing
5.
my way.
If it's a tie, we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order. Let's not worry about that too much for now. So it makes a flip list, then it sorts the flip list.
Through my
Now,
recovery,
if I just wanted to print it out nicer,
in my
I
entire
can loop through
life,
this new list. I could say 4,
I feel whole.
V comma K. Remember, this is a flip list, so the sensible thing is what's coming out of this list.
Really
Each
feel
tuple
in
is
my
value comma
power.
key in temp, and I'm only going to go up to 5, up to, but
She
not including
says
5.
her dietitian has her
so I'm pulling them
focusing
back out
on
as value
eating
key,
3
because that's
meals
what
a
they are.
day, and
There's
she's
value
doing
key, C value
Pilates.
key, value
Also,
key,
the
value key.
Cleveland
So
Journal
V's
of
going to go through
Medicine
these, and
did a
K's going to go through
study
these, and then I'm just going to
finding
print.
that restrictive
K comma V. So
eating
this is kind of
disorders
flipping backwards,
tend
so
to
that
be
I want to see them this way.
underrecognized in
And most
patients
common one,
with
car 3.
larger
And so it's just going through
bodies.
this up to the 5th one,
Guys?
and then printing
Okay,
it.
Keenan, thanks very much.
So let me comment this out.
May is Asian
Comment
American
that
and
out.
Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and GMA is celebrating with a
this.
look at the rich
We have
history and
dictionary.
culture here in
Comment on
the
the dictionary.
U.S.
We have
This
dictionary.
morning, we're
We
starting
make a
with
list, and
nearest
we make these
Chinatown,
reverse
getting back on its
couples
feet
where we have
as we
value first and
turn
key
a
second.
corner
We're
in the
setting it up
pandemic.
so the sort's going to work.
Pilgrim here
And then
with
once
the
it's sorted, we have to
story.
flip them back. So we
Good
flip
morning,
them for
George.
sorting
Most of
from
the
key value to
businesses
value
in
key
New York
for sorting. We
Chinatown
do the
are
sort, then we flip them back to key value.
family-run businesses, many now run by children or
It works fine. So
great-grandchildren.
let's try our big file,
when the
intro.txt,
pandemic hit,
and there you
the
go.
community
Those are the
looked
5
out
most
for
common
each
words
other
in
in just that
intro.txt.
way.
So
Like
you might ask
family.
yourself, why do we use tuples? We probably could have really used lists for this,
in the
but
heart
tuples
of
are more
New York
efficient than this.
City's
And you notice that we weren't going to
Chinatown,
modify.
there are
We didn't
signs
modify the
that
temp list. It's a
life
list of tuples.
is
The tuples within the
slowly
list,
getting
we
back to
weren't going to
normal.
modify.
It's
So
a
we tend not to
welcome relief for
make
many.
lists if we can get away with using tuples. And so that's why we made this.
Pandemic wreaked havoc on this
Okay.
close-knit
So
community,
I
both
hope that was useful to you.
financially and
See you on the next.
emotionally. Once thriving businesses
Hello,
now
welcome to Chapter 11,
permanently
regular questions.
closed,
The fun thing
and
about this chapter
residents
is, unlike all the other
concerned
chapters,
and
you
in
sort of
some
had to really
cases
understand every single thing in
fearful for
chapters
their
1 through 11
safety.
built on that. Once you can, built on it. But you can really get along
As racist attacks continue to plague the Asian American community here and across the country. Pearl River Mart owner Joanne Kwong rallying to take care of her neighbors, especially the elderly.
We've done a couple of different initiatives that we're super proud of. One is called Light Up Chinatown, and we ended up having people adopt a lantern, and you can go visit your lantern in Chinatown. It basically brightens up the street for our elders, walking the streets at night so that they feel a little bit safer.
Established in 1971, Pearl River Mart became the first Chinese department store in the U.S. Today, a new location and a new chapter in a long history.
It's about bringing people together, providing a space, and for 50 years, since this is our 50th anniversary, Pearl River has been that community space for Chinatown and for the Chinatown community. We feel very proud to be Asian here, and we want to share kind of culture and space with each other, but also with the rest of the city.
We were visiting Pearl River Market around 10 years ago, just the double whammy of COVID and with like a lot of what's going on in the city, so I thought it would be really good to support it.
And here, 200 feet that will take you back in time. Doyer Street, home to Wilson Tang's Nam Hua Tea Parlor, which just last year celebrated their 100-year anniversary.
One of the major challenges during the pandemic was just keeping our staff safe. We had an interesting schedule. Like we were open a little later, we'll close a little earlier. The business was concerned was keeping our guys in a safe place.
Wilson is heartened and inspired by his community's actions.
I am really proud of today's young adults who are mobilizing to help the elderly in need, to help sign up for vaccines or to help them with personal safety devices, just advocating for them because we're not here without them.
Being in lockdown for the first month, of course, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear, but I think that's when ideas started bubbling within the community. How are we going to help the businesses that aren't surviving?
Like Wilson, Corey Ng, too, was born and raised here, opening up milk and cream cereal bar 4 years ago. The shop then partnered with other businesses in the area.
When Chinatown really needed the help, when the elderly needed meals, when businesses needed fundraising, everyone came together. It's a lot of little micro organizations doing their individual parts with all the same mission.
The new generations in embodying the same resilience and fortitude exemplified by their ancestors who first came to the U.S. and called these streets home.
I would love for my son to take this over. That would be great, just to keep the traditions alive.
We don't, in a sense, change the method.
And in February, we celebrate the Lunar New Year. 2021, the year of the ox. In Chinese culture, the ox is seen as being hardworking, having strength and determination. And that's something, guys, that many communities are having to lean into, not just the Chinese American community or Asian American communities, as we all try to get through this pandemic together.
Absolutely. It's great to see you.
Good to see you.
So we're going to run out of methods in the spring class.
Thank you for bringing us that beautiful piece, Eva. Now to children and the COVID vaccine, with the FDA expected to approve the Pfizer vaccine for 12 to 15-year-olds in the coming days and those as young as 2 by the fall, we asked you for your questions on social media. Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Jennifer Ashton is here to answer them. You ready to go, Jen?
Let's go. I love these.
All right, the first question I know that you do. Maria on Facebook, are the vaccines expected to have side effects on kids?
So this is a really common and important question that a lot of parents and grandparents are asking. And the short answer is yes, there can always be side effects. And remember, when you talk about vaccines, a lot of times these temporary, non-serious side effects are just our immune system doing its job. In the clinical trials in the pediatric age range, the Pfizer vaccine showed no serious safety concerns. So that is really, really important. So short-term side effects, like maybe a little fever, body aches, headaches, possible, but serious, not seen yet, luckily.
All right, next up is Jamie on Twitter, who asks, if my children are healthy and all the adults in our house have been vaccinated, why do our kids need to get the vaccines?
Really important to remember that kids do not spend 100% of their time indoors. So there are really two big reasons that kids need to get the vaccine. One of them is that it is possible that they could be infected and then unknowingly pass COVID-19 to someone with a serious or underlying pre-existing medical condition. And also, though it's very uncommon and unlikely, it is still possible that children infected with COVID-19 could become seriously ill or worse. We have seen that. So it's important to think really in ripple effects outside the box. It's not just your home environment that you need to worry about.
You got to keep that in mind. These are some really good questions, including this one. Molly on Facebook. She says, are researchers testing to see the impact these vaccines will have on teens going through puberty? What about long-term effects?
Yeah, and we're seeing this myth propagated on social media about these vaccines affecting other women's menstrual cycles. I want to put that to rest here for sure. There's a big difference, Robin, between observation and association and causation, cause and effect. This defies science and biology. There is no interaction between these vaccines and reproductive hormonal effects like puberty or menstruation or fertility. It is really important to understand basic biology here. Women can have changes in their menstrual cycle and also have gotten the vaccine. That does not mean one caused the other. So right now, there's no puberty concerns, there's no fertility concerns, and it's just implausible that these vaccines can affect a woman's monthly cycle.
What we need to know. All right, Jen, we'll see you with TJ and Amy on GMA3 this afternoon. Thanks so much.
We've turned out a real estate going virtual with new ways to sell your home from your smartphone.
So it's saying,
it's a story we first saw in USA Today. Rebecca Jarvis has it. Good morning, Rebecca.
But if you look now, it's saying, okay, I'm looking for one or more.
Hey, George, good morning. Yeah, a lot of people are thinking about selling their homes right now. But anyone who has sold a house knows it can be time-consuming and costly. And that's where this new technology comes in. You put a few details about your house on the internet, you upload some pictures, and within a matter of a few days, you should have an offer.
The way it works, like I said, it's sort of taking this template and stamping across the line.
When Brian Westerman decided to sell this Tennessee home in January, he didn't hire an agent, host an open house, or make any repairs. Instead, he uploaded a few pictures and some information to Open Door, an online real estate platform that flips homes and had an offer in less than 48 hours.
And that first initial offer in that video walkthrough, they say, yeah, here's the price, here's what we think repairs are, here's kind of your net price.
It's a relatively new trend in real estate called iBuyers or instant buyers. Open Door bills itself as a way to skip the hard part of selling your home for those sellers looking for a fast and streamlined process.
It's those customers that are really looking for certainty and simplicity that want to avoid the hassle
it's going to say, I would like to start with letter F,
of dealing with showings of their homes, of going through the financing.
Open Door has bought and sold over 90,000 homes since 2014 in 30 markets across the country. They charge a transaction fee that varies, but is currently around 5% of the sale price.
We believe we can price these homes really competitively and make great offers to sellers, and we're willing to take that risk of what that resale is going to be.
Other companies like Zillow and Redfin offer similar services. And while the pandemic may have helped spur on the practice of doing business virtually, experts say it may not be right for everyone.
There is something to be said about working with a human who comes with a world of experience, who can hold your hand through the process.
Open Door purchased Westerman's house for $335,000 after an inspection, then sold it last month for $348,000.
We closed in 2 weeks. And I walked to a title company, signed some paperwork, and the money was in my account literally 3 weeks later.
So here's another example where we basically say,
and one way to gut check this, decide whether it's right for you, have a broker take a look at your house, let you know how much they think they could sell it for. Also, just do a little digging. What are houses in your area selling for? That way you will know whether the iBuyer amount is really worth it to you. George?
What's the difference? Okay, Rebecca, thanks very much.
So what we do is put parentheses. Parentheses don't are code. There's a code in registration code. Parentheses say start your extraction and end your extraction. And so when you do this with a parenthesis, when you do it, without a parenthesis, you get the whole from, right? Without a parenthesis,
we will guide you through it all.
That doesn't have a from. So, but if you do that with the parenthesis, you match the from, but you only get this bit.
We have made it through another
so you can add this and make the matching part more precise, but without changing what you return. You specify what you want to return with the parentheses. So next I want to show you just a couple of different ways to use these new functions.
How much they love to hold their hands.
David, we're showing our love and support for all the ICU staff.
And look at the situation where we recall we just wanted the host name, right? This is an email address and we're interested in the host name. So we have this string, and we go find the at, right?
Now, when it matters most, the straightforward facts. ABC News is America's number one news. Good Morning America, number one in the morning, 9 years running. World News Tonight with David Moore, number one in the evening with America's most watched newscast, 2020. The number one news magazine on Friday nights. The View, the number one daytime talk show. And ABC News Live, number one in streaming news. ABC News is America's number one news.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for Overall Excellence in Television. ABC News, America's number one news source.
This is GMA3, what you need to know. GMA3.
A third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon.
It's all about you. Lunchtime on ABC.
Let's use our regular question to start with the string.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march.
This is a set of characters.
Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Friday nights, 9 Central, true crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues, the hunt, true crime, 2020, Friday nights, 9 Central on ABC.
And if it's got to be a from, followed by space, and then followed by the number of characters, star, followed by net sign. So look at the match, you see a space, but the number of characters, you're going to see net sign, and then we're going to start extracting, and we're going to go non-blank,
Stories of all time,
and everything to the previous one, that makes it much more precise. There, if we look at the previous one, while it works on good lines, they might actually trigger on lines that we actually don't want to see. So this allows us to refine it, it only actually does this to lines that we care about. So it's sort of both an if statement and a splitting extracting going on at the same time.
Hell's Reunion, Hollywood's famous group of friends back together.
So here is
the pandemic kept them apart for a year. Kaylee Hartung sat down with the cast to talk about season 2.
And we're going to extract this number, and then we're going to compute the maximum.
Highly anticipated return. Good morning, Kaylee.
We're going to open a file.
Hey, Robin, speaking of the tea, we got some to spill here. You always watch this crew grow up in front of the cameras. Their lives have looked pretty fun and fabulous, and yes, filled with drama, but nothing makes them more relatable than the challenges of the past year.
That's a single character, and that's one or more, and then stop extract.
So much stuff is happening.
We followed Hollywood's most iconic friend group.
If the line doesn't have this, then it's missing some way. But if the prefix is the number thing, it's going to fail too. We're going to get back a list.
Moving forward, it's about the future.
Now The Hills, New Beginnings, premiering a second season. The cast saying the pandemic forced them to be more authentic than ever before.
Everybody's struggling with something, and we're all kind of trying to
will skip up, but then when we actually get one, and we know instantly that we've got one, and Scout Sub-Zero, because that's what we extracted, is this number.
Through COVID, you're going to see the realness of the real.
This is real life. There's no hiding.
Yeah, everybody has a real story to tell this time
we have
around.
A skate character, and the
From
whole idea
failing relationships like Caitlyn Carter and her ex-husband Brody Jenner.
I've heard a lot of people that I love.
I think that you will get a very real and realistic explanation for what did happen between Brody and I. The stories that ended up out there weren't accurate.
To failing business ventures.
I'm trying to restructure my world.
And the challenges of a new phase of life.
I thought we were getting more serious about trying to get pregnant.
Is that dangerous for a baby for you to be so stressed out every day?
I cry a lot. We just had so much going on with almost losing our company and our finances. It was really challenging, and trying for a baby and having a toddler.
It was hard for us to be on the same page, but now we've been trying. And
welcome to Network Programs. This is Chapter 12. Now we're going to learn a little bit about how we talk to resources on network using Python.
What have been the biggest challenges of parenting during the pandemic?
Parenting myself is really tough. I had to ask myself, what are you going to do today? What are you going to eat? Are you okay? We're going to get through this.
We try to check in with you, but you wouldn't respond.
Adriana, dating in a COVID world is not easy. What has it been like for you?
I mean, I don't date in general, so in a COVID world, it's even harder. But thanks to Heidi and Spencer over here.
Had to help Adriana out.
That's how it works. And there's these layers that we're not going to talk about in this section, but I talk about in the book.
On a blind date, which kind of started it.
The internet layer talks about how to construct, say, 15
it is hard, because you're not going out. It's a life changer in many ways.
And that's the layer where your computer sort of assumes that to make a phone call to another computer in the process.
I think there's a few surprises people are going to be in store for. Brody and I, we did
Where's your
relationship with Brody right now?
And what are we going to do with it? If you're interested, take a look. So we're going to start with some kind of connection. You have two processes. Process, and we have some kind of connection between them. And there's a connection that you can both use to talk.
Speaking of surprises.
In terms, we call these things sockets, and that is one process running on one computer, another process running on one computer, another second
Who
computer.
talked Kristen into coming back? Who wants to take credit for?
I think we both did.
Original cast member Kristen Cavallari is coming back to stir things up.
She's brought such life and energy, and she had history with all of us, so it just felt so natural.
And with strict safety protocols in place during filming, even a pandemic couldn't stop this group from having fun.
We were very COVID safe, and letting camera crews and people into your house, especially with kids, was a little nerve-wracking, but it gave us a break from that and to be able to be with our friends and to remember that you can still live through life. And I definitely turned up.
We all did.
Yeah, I definitely was like, I'm having fun. That's it.
I'm a server.
I would expect nothing less.
And so, for example, there might be processes running on various computers.
And as they say, the rest is still unwritten. The Hills New Beginnings premieres next Wednesday, May 12th on MTV.
That's Gmail, and you have a local client, say like Thunderbird or Apple Mail, that calls a protocol to pull that mail across, and those live on various ports. So these ports are those extensions, and by convention, we have standards that tell us what to roughly expect at those ports. So when you're talking to port 80, you expect to talk to a web server or an HTTP server. If you're talking on port 23, you expect to talk to a telnet server, and on and on and on and on. And so these are the extensions, the typical, commonly used default extensions for various network application processes that are serving us data. Now sometimes you'll go to a URL and you'll see in that URL there's a colon and a number. That means it's a web server that's running on a port other than the official 80 or 443 port. Now, in Python, we can talk to these sockets, right? We can just talk to them, and it's really easy, surprisingly easy. We have import socket, because that's a library. It comes with Python, but until you can use it, you can't use it in your program until you say it. And then you basically in a socket library called socket function, that's what that syntax is saying. You're making a socket. Now, the key to a socket is it's sort of like an unopened file handle, a tab of a file handle. It's an upward-looking thing that's not yet connected. These parameters, you're just going to type them in. This says we're going to make a socket that goes across the internet, and it's a stream socket, which means that it's a series of characters that come one after another, rather than a series of blocks of text. There's another kind that's harder to deal with, but we're going to do this. So this, don't worry about this line. Just know that this creates a socket, but does not associate it. The very next line, we get back a socket object in this variable that I'm storing in the variable mysock. And then when you want to make a connection across the internet to the far end, you say, oh, hey, your socket, extend yourself across the internet. Make the phone call to this host, data.pr4e.org, and on that port 80. So that's making the phone call. This is like the phone number, and this is like the phone extension. So we haven't sent any data yet. We have simply rung the phone of a process, hopefully living on port 80. If it's there, great. This might blow up. This one here won't blow up, but this line here we could blow up. If there's nothing sitting on that process, we come back and say, oh, you tried to call, you got no answer. That's a legitimate thing to happen. Maybe you don't have a network connection, or maybe that service is down on that server, or the whole server's down. But so I just it's kind of amazing that we're sitting here in Python, and in 3 lines we have probably 500,000 engineers who built this thing called the Internet, all these protocols and all this software, and we just made use of it in 3 lines of Python. And this is one of the reasons that people absolutely love Python. Absolutely love Python.
Vaccination
so now that we have a socket, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of data are we going to send, and then what kind of data are we going to expect to receive across that socket. So now we have a socket, we are going to talk about what we're going to do with it, right? So the socket basically functions at this level. Your application is saying, make me a socket, which is sort of this endpoint, and then the connect actually connects to an application on the far side. And there's a port involved, so that might be port 80. And this is the far host, and that could be www.py4e.org or data.py4e.org. Okay, so the socket is solving this. And the question then is,
women's
what are we going to send, and what are we going to expect with that? And that's what we call the application protocol. So we know that these two have made a phone call. It's no different than making a phone call and saying, hello, right? And everyone knows that when the phone rings, you pick it up, you're supposed to say hello. And that's part of our protocol. So who calls first, right? So the dominant protocol that we use in this section is HTTP protocol. The key is transfer protocol. It's dominant, it's really easy to use, that's why I use it as an example, but realize that there are many others like mail and file transfer and remote login and all kinds of other protocols. Each is a different application protocol, all used in sockets at a lower level. But then on top of that, they layer the rules of the road for retrieving hypertext web pages. And we have used these for all kinds of other things. So the protocol, like I said, like who answers the phone first, what do they say, what happens if the person doesn't answer right, can you hear me now, those kinds of things. And it's a real simple thing, and all you really need to do is so that both sides can agree, you have to write a thing that's like the rules in the middle. Say, okay, everybody, as long as we all do this, we'll be fine. It's as simple as picking on which side of the road the cars can drive on. It works fine no matter which side.
Globally, existing power systems have made.
So if you look at the typical URL, and this is one of the things that the web innovators in 1980 really invented that was wonderful, and it seems second nature today, but in 1990 it was rather revolutionary. And these uniform resource locators encrypted included in themselves a protocol, a host to connect to, and a document to retrieve. So this is one of the clever ideas that the web came up with.
Problems like climate change, they affect everyone, regardless of social determinants, and they have a disproportionate effect on those who are more vulnerable, and within those vulnerable communities, it's the women and children
they created a protocol that we have grown to know and love and use for way more than retrieving documents, as we'll see in the chapters. So we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when you click on a page that has a link. Now, don't have fancy stuff you can go on, but this is the basics. And so let's just imagine for the moment you start sitting looking at a web page, drchuck.com/page1, and inside that there is a hyperlink. It is a indication that says when you click on this page, go to a different page. And in that you see the name of the page that you're supposed to go to. So we click on this link, and that is a browser. This is an application. This is a process.
It's so critical that
or an app
we
that's running on your computer. This is the browser. Okay? And when the browser sees a click inside your computer, then the browser makes a connection to port 80 on the web server,
are at the center of the recovery and rebuilding process. Otherwise, you're not going to achieve anything.
Then the web server does some magic work.
Now, more than ever before, it's
then the web
not
server does
just
some magic
about
work here,
climate
reads some files, runs some code, does whatever, constructs an answer to our phone call and sends it back. And it sends in this case back a web page in the format of HTML, hypertext markup, which is different than HTTP, which is the protocol that we're exchanging. HTML is the format of the document we're getting back. And in this has an anchor tag, href, and an anchor tag, some highlighted text. And now your browser takes this back and then renders it according to the rules of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc., parses it, and then makes a free web page. And this web page happens to have a link back to the first page. If you click there, it will do this over and over and over again. And that is the request response cycle. And that's governed by a series of internet standards. These are standards that were built from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s and continue to this day by a group called Internet Engineering Task Force, or IETF.
And the girls of the community, you're able to have so much more progress because again, they are the ones who are closest to the environment. By involving the women, you're benefiting the entire village and the entire community.
For several decades.
How
they're
can
always interested in improvements, and that's what RFC stands for. And they're all named RFC whatever.
50% of the population, 50% of the species. How can you ignore that
this is like
range?
So
if we want to really involve girls in this climate education and STEM education, it has to begin from when they're children and learning about all of the challenges their world faces.
Method with a space, with the URI, with space,
it's not just about limiting carbon output. It's not just about going towards alternative renewable energy and getting away from fossil fuels. It's about fundamentally addressing the issues of how we as humans are components of an ecosystem. And if we're going to solve a problem as big as climate, then we need everyone on board. And we need to make space for every brain at the table.
And at this point, I'm connected. And whatever I type on my keyboard is going to be sent to that server. Now, if you're doing this, I want to paste this really fast because if you take too long, most web servers will be like, you're a human. I don't want to talk to humans. I want to talk to programs. So remember to type this fast enough. And then you have to hit enter twice. So you have to have a blank line here. Just type this exactly as it's shown. And then you will get back the server. If you do it right, the server, and the server's properly configured, the server will give you back some headers. And this is metadata about the document you're going to get. For example, it's saying it's got text/HTML, which means that the remaining stuff is going to be in HTML, hypertext markup language. It has a blank line, and then the actual document, and then the connection is closed. And so if you do this, you can set this up in a way that you can run this on your own computer and in effect hack through the back door a web server. Now you can't hack the secure web servers and mail servers. It used to be easy to hack, they're harder to hack now because they challenge you for information. But part of the reason I'm so obsessed with the command line is this is how real hackers work, and they know how to talk some of these protocols more directly. And so we think of this beautiful, sophisticated application talking to some other thing, and it's all pretty. We got wonderful clicky buttons and nice usability. But the reality is, like in the Matrix Reloaded here, the kinds of things that really talented hackers are doing use command lines, and they really know what's going on, and that's how they do it. They understand what's going on better than the developers of the computers that are trying to be resistant to the hacking. So I come from a long line of using the command line, and that's why I encourage you to use the command line in this course. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up into the application layer, and instead of typing those commands by hand, we're going to actually send them from Python and write a very simple Python web browser. in this section, we're going to write a web browser using Python. So we've already got a socket. We know how to write a socket. In the previous section, we played with the protocol and used Telnet to do it by hand, and now we're going to do it in Python. And what you're going to find is, it's not that hard. So here we go. So the first 3 lines of this program, import socket, make the socket. Remember, the socket isn't really got the connection. So when you make the socket, again, you're going to make a stream-based socket, and it's suitable for going across the internet. The connection, it's like ring, phone call, connect to data.prp.org and port 8. And so that basically says extend the socket across and connect to a web server. So there's got to be software running, and this will blow up if the software is not running. Okay?
Is America's
now we've got a phone, made a phone call. Now, whether or not the remote site says hello or not is up to the application program. In this case, the web server is saying nothing. They wait for you to talk first. So we're the web browser in this case. And so we're going to talk first. And we know what we can do with the application. We know the reason get blah, 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 say blah, 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 then a 2 blue lines. Return, remember that have a line. Talk a little bit about this info, comparing data to go across the internet. And then we say send it. So this basically takes that little string and sends it across the network. And then this piece of software is waiting for it. And then the software goes to the file, does some other stuff, and then starts sending us data back, which we can then choose to receive. So now we're at a real simple loop. We're going to receive first. We're going to receive these things by 12 characters at a time. So we loop, receive 5 by 12 at a time. And if we get 0 characters, that means it's going to get the string. The string is closed. If you look at the little example from the previous one, you saw connection closed. When the connection closed, we get an indication where it says because we ask for some data and we get 0 data. Otherwise, if there might be more data, it is late. The network is slow. You'll see if you do a print statement here, you will see that there's a pause at time on the real network. The network is fast. People blink. It's so fast. This is how we go. So this is basically until the entire socket is closed, we're going to read this data. And because the data comes from the outside world, we have to keep going. We print it, and then we're all done. We break out of here and close the socket. So literally, that is an entire web browser.
These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
This is what the program does.
What is it that you really want to know? Need to know.
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC.
You know this actually could be a JPEG, a PNG, or some kind of image, right? And this data would here look like blah, blah.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
JPEG URL.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
Simple web browser. Next, I want to talk a little bit about what happens when characters transition from outside your computer.
I know in my heart they did this.
Servers and then back.
It's the time of suspicion. The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
So I'm already copied this string. So we get HTML, copy that in, copy it. If it waits too long, it's going to be so direct. Web server responds with some metadata. How much data there is, how much data is there. Length separates information from the body.
What happens when a single idea takes root? The design professional switching gears in the pandemic in the direction of sustainability and community composting. Her Ground Cycle company is really catching on.
Ground Cycle is a produce and compost company. We basically connect residents with local farms, and we collect food scraps, bring it to local farms, bring back produce, distribute that. I was working as an architect, and I studied architecture for 5 years. I was inspired to switch my career because I've always been really passionate about sustainability, and when we were all locked up at home during the beginning of the pandemic, I was at home cooking and realizing that my scraps were going into landfill, and that really didn't sit right with me. I called like 40 farmers up in one day and asked if we can get connected and if I could bring some food scraps to them to process and help them with distributing their food. So what happens with the food scraps is that it gets brought to this local farm upstate, and they're able to take our food scraps, process it into finished compost. Our members are getting that finished compost back to use on their house plants, on their gardens, and it's closing the cycle completely. Basically, food scrap might not seem like a valuable substance to us because we can't eat it. Unedible parts are actually really nutrient dense. You know, when it goes into landfill, it doesn't have the opportunity to decompose in a beneficial way. It actually releases carbon emissions, nutrients, which is super harmful for the environment. But when you actually process them the correct way, which the local farms are doing, then it turns into this thing called black gold, where
so now it's time to teach you a bit of complexity about text processing. Up to now, we've kind of been ignoring complexity of text processing. Everything that I have been doing, most of what I've been doing is in ASCII, the Latin character set, the character set that the United States, Europe, lots of Western civilizations use this character set. And to go back to the 1950s and 1960s, we were happy to have one computer and we didn't care what the character set was as long as when you typed on the keyboard, it came out on the printer, and interrupted the station, didn't matter. And as the 70s and 80s came along, certainly 70s, we needed something else. We standardized on character set. They standardized on character set, certainly in the West, that did not represent anything. And so if you look at this
friends who signed up in the first week, now we're at hundreds of people who are composting with us. It's just really incredible what one idea can do.
The power of one idea, one voice, good for her, and we love that story.
The best-selling author who says a COVID test saved her life. Will Reeve is back with a look at Annabelle Gurwich's battle with lung cancer and what she's